What up, everybody? Davekwon here, and now that we are firmly entrenched into October, I thought it was high time that we do a horror movie list. So I didn't want to give you the same old movies that are shown over and over again on AMC or other channels. I wanted to give you some different options. A lot of these you may have or probably have heard of if you're a horror lover. If you are just a casual horror fan, maybe you haven't heard of them. But I just wanted to give you some different options outside of like my favorite Halloween or some of the other ones that are shown repeatedly during this time of year. So I didn't rank them as best to worst. I did just the release date, so oldest to most recent. And we're going to start with a classic, but one that I don't see around too much anymore. Nosferatu. This is a movie about a real estate transaction gone horribly wrong for a town. A man named Hutter is sent to Transylvania to meet up with a man named Count Orlok. Well, it turns out that Count Orlok is a vampire, and once Hutter realizes this, it's a smidge too late. Orlok has hidden himself in a coffin and gotten onto a boat to head to the new town where he's moving into his new home, and everything goes sideways for the people of the boat and the town. So it is honestly, despite being 1922 and a silent film, super creepy. The guy who played Count Orlok nails it. And it's not just 1922 creepy, it's creepy today. Like, this guy would live in your nightmares. So I highly suggest Nosferatu. Okay, moving on up to 1980. We skip ahead pretty far. But we're going to a John Carpenter movie, and not Halloween. This is 2 years later. It is The Fog. I actually really enjoy this movie. The score, I think, is great. Not as good as Halloween, but still really creepy. It is about a town called Antonio Bay that is celebrating its 100th year of existence. But while this is all going on, while they're getting ready to celebrate, this thick fog starts moving in, and in it holds the ghosts of a pirate ship that was sunk 100 years ago, and they're seeking revenge on the people that sunk them, or I guess the relatives of the people that sunk them. So it's a pretty eerie movie. It's slower, but I feel like movies back in the late 70s and early 80s were a little bit slower. But I think that just kind of adds to it. And it's got a good cast. Jamie Lee Curtis comes back. Adrienne Barbeau is in it. So if you haven't seen The Fog, check out The Fog. It is another good one. Okay, moving on to one that's a little more silly is 1986 Chopping Mall. So Chopping Mall is about a group of probably like college age kids that are working at the mall, and they're gonna stay after hours, like after work. They're gonna hide and wait until the mall closes, and then use like a furniture store to do naughty teenage things in the mall after hours. But a new robotics security system has been installed, and it kind of goes berserk, and anyone that it sees, it tries to kill. So it turns out to be a night of survival for these college kids in a mall. So it's a goofy one. It's a horror comedy, but it's actually really fun. So that is Chopping Mall from 1986. Moving on to 1993, a movie called Fire in the Sky. So this is like the alien abduction story. It's about a guy named Travis Walton, who him and his logging crew, I believe in Arizona, they're getting off of work as loggers, and they're heading home, and they see this light out in the forest, and they think it's maybe a fire or something, so they kind of move towards it to investigate, and it turns out to be an alien spaceship. Um, so Travis gets out of the truck where they're all in. I think there's 6 of them, and he gets hit with a beam of light. The other guy's terrified, um, haul ass away in their truck, and then they get maybe half a mile, quarter of a mile, something like that, and they're like, we got to go back and get Travis. And when they get back, he's gone. So a lot of the middle of the movie is just the police blaming the other 5 guys. They think that they murdered Travis, and they go through, they give him polygraph tests, and everyone just assumes that these guys killed him. But a few days later, Travis pops back up out of nowhere, and they bring him back in. And then more towards the end, you actually get into like when he's on the craft with the aliens. So being abducted by aliens is one of my biggest fears in life, and I hope it never happens to myself or any one of you. But Fire in the Sky, I think, is a pretty creepy movie. It's got some very, very scary moments, especially once they get onto the craft, and that first beginning scene is really scary too. The middle, gets pretty slow, but I actually kind of enjoyed that middle section. So Fire in the Sky, 1993. Okay, now we're going to jump forward to 2003 and a Japanese horror movie called One Missed Call. So One Missed Call, I guess, is probably kind of on the heels. I believe it came after like The Ring and The Grudge, but it was like kind of cashing in on those like ghost stories of the Japanese horror of that era. It is about a group of kids who start receiving calls, and if they answer it, they hear themselves a few days later being killed. So it's them in the future getting killed in a whatever way. Or if they didn't answer the phone, then they left, it left a message, and you're hearing yourself die. So it's one by one, all these kids, this is happening to them. And of course, they're obviously trying to figure out how to stop it. And when the phone call pops up, it's the future date and time, so they know exactly when this is supposed to happen. And they're trying to avoid it. So yeah, I think that's a kind of an overlooked Japanese horror movie from 2003. Okay, so moving forward to 2005. And this movie genuinely terrifies me. It's called The Descent, and it is about a group of girls who are going on like a caving adventure, I think in North Carolina. But they get down into the cave, and first it's just the claustrophobia is terrible. Like that, I'm super claustrophobic, and it just gets more and more confined, as they get into the movie, and then it caves in. One of the tunnels they come through caves in, and they're trapped. So then it becomes them just trying to find a way out of the cave, finding another tunnel that leads to an escape. But then creatures get involved, and the creatures are like humanoid creatures, but they've lived in these caves for so long that they've adapted where, being in pitch black, they can't see, but they use all their other senses to like hunt and stuff. And they start hunting these girls who are trapped down in the cave. So this is genuinely a terrifying movie. So if you're claustrophobic like I am, it will freak you out. Like, there's some of the shots that are super, super tight and confined, and it can be tough. Yeah, but I thoroughly enjoy the movie. I think it's really great. I think it's scary, and I think it's one of my favorite horror films, for sure. So So yeah, that is The Descent from 2005. Okay, now we're moving on to 2006 and a movie called Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. So this is kind of a mockumentary, sort of a comedy, but it's really interesting the way they do it. So this guy who claims that he survived an attack when he was a kid, by townspeople. Um, they thought he was dead, but he didn't die. And now he's grown up and he hires a film crew to basically follow him around and watch how he is going to basically become a serial killer. He's explaining everything he's going to do to this film crew. He's saying like the psychology behind why he's doing what he's doing. He's saying how he's setting up. He's like rigging this whole house to set up to where people are going to have to go where he wants them to go. And he's going to slowly pick them off one by one. And he's already got a girl picked out that's going to be like the final girl. So it's a really neat concept for a movie. Just, basically seeing it from the killer's point of view. And I don't know why he wanted to get this all on tape is beyond me, but I guess he just wanted to be known for this. He wanted to be known for something. So yeah, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, 2006. Staying in 2006, we're going to go with Hatchet. So Hatchet is like an homage to 1980s slasher films. It's over the top with its gore. It's about just this group of people who go like on a swamp like tour in New Orleans, in the bayou, and out there lives like this it's like the ghost of a ghost of a guy who just pretty much kills anybody who comes into the bayou. His name's Victor Crowley, and it's so over the top with the gore that it's comical in a way, but it's a really fun movie, a really good slasher. I believe there's 3 sequels to Hatchet, so 4 movies in all. And they're all fun. They're all the same. I mean, it's like a new age kind of Jason. And Kane Hodder, coincidentally, plays Victor Crowley, just like he played Jason. So Hatchet, it's a really fun one, and it's got one of the best kill scenes, I think, in a movie. So if you're into gore and that sort of thing, this is a perfect one. Okay, so from Hatchet, we're going to 2007 with a Spanish, I believe it's Spanish, movie called The Orphanage. So it is a movie about a woman who has convinced her husband to purchase the orphanage where she grew up. And she wants to kind of turn it into like a children's hospital or just a place for sick kids to live. And she's got her own adopted son, but he gets very ill and then disappears. And then she starts kind of seeing and hearing spirits, and it's about, kind of, they may or may not be trying to help her find her son, who's been missing for a few months now and presumed dead. But this is a really kind of moody and atmospheric, creepy movie. So that is The Orphanage from 2007. Staying in 2007, this one is one that a lot of horror fans like. It's kind of a cult classic now. I don't necessarily really see it on TV though, but this is a perfect one if you're just starting into horror movies. It's got a bit of everything in it, but it's called Trick or Treat. And it's an anthology, so it's got like, I think 4 or 5 maybe stories going on within it, but then they all kind of intertwine at the end. But it's got vampires, it's got werewolves, it's got a creepy ghost kid. So just about anything you kind of want in a horror movie is in this movie. So it's a really good one, and plus like the visuals are really cool. It just has that mood of Halloween oozes out of it. Like it's really really good. So um, I would say this is one to either watch like on or around Halloween, or one to like watch at the beginning of like whatever you want to start, like a horror marathon, or if you're doing 31 movies in 31 days or something like that. That would be a good one to start with, or kind of conclude with at the end of the month on Halloween. But that is Trick or Treat. Okay. Moving on to 2010 is a found footage movie called The Last Exorcism. So this one is about a minister who has kind of lost his faith, and he does his sermons, but he doesn't necessarily believe in what he's saying. He's more of a showman than anything else, and he's been going out and trying to disprove possessions. So people will write him letters saying, "Hey, I feel like me or one of my family members or friends is possessed. Can you come out and do an exorcism?" And he's got all these little tricks where he fakes like he's doing something to help him, but he's not really. And then after he does all this stuff, suddenly these people are cured and no longer possessed. And he's just like, yeah, I didn't do anything. But then he gets a letter from this one family. He goes out and things are seemingly going as expected, but then he gets called back and things are not as expected. So this one's a really good one. Definitely a lot of scary moments, but I thought it was interesting the way they went about it, trying to like prove that this is all fake. And most of the time, the ones that he actually went to were, but one case, the exception to the rule. So that one is The Last Exorcism. Okay, staying in 2010, coincidentally directed by the same guy who did Hatchet. This movie is called Frozen. Not the Disney animated one though. Although I think that the blonde-haired girl, I think she was pretty scary. But anyway, Frozen is about a group of friends who are going skiing for the weekend, and they're the last riders up on the ski lift, and when they get halfway up, everything shuts down. They thought the people who ran the ski hill thought everyone was done, and they're closed for like 3 or 4 days. Like they don't open back up until the next weekend. So they're trapped probably 30 feet up, and they're freezing, and they have to figure out a way to get down. But then the wolves show up to make things worse. So this is just one of those movies that is scary because it's something that could probably truly happen, and you just don't know what you're gonna do in a situation like that. So yeah, I thought that was a really cool movie, and actually very tense throughout, and you just kind of see like some of the things you wouldn't think about would happen when you're up there. So yeah, 2010, that is Frozen. Okay, moving up to 2016 is a movie called The Monster. So this movie is about a mom and a daughter who she's an alcoholic and abusive, and the daughter has finally kind of had enough and says she wants to go live with her dad, which is not too much better than living with the mom. But essentially the daughter was playing mom to the mom throughout. They do little flashbacks showing that how she's taking care of the mom when she's passed out drunk and been abusive, and she just wants to be a kid again. So on the way to drop her off to her dad, they get in a car accident, They, like a wolf or something, or a coyote runs out in the road, they swerve to miss it and crash into a tree. So while they're waiting for the tow truck to show up, this monster shows up. And from then on, it just becomes survival. Just trying to keep this monster at bay and try to keep it out of the car, do whatever they can do to get away from it. So it's really tense, really creepy, and I like the whole kind of mother-daughter plot, because even though she's been drunk and abusive, when the chips are down, she wants to save her daughter. So, you kind of see that whole relationship and how all that develops. So I thought it was a really cool movie. So the next one, also 2016, is not a movie, but it was a mini series that aired on the Sci-Fi Channel. So I think this had 4 seasons, but this was season 1 of it, and I think each season was a different story. But this one was called Channel Zero Candle Cove. So I think it's 6 episodes long, and each one's about 45 minutes. So if you've got some time or a couple of days to watch it through, I think it's highly worthwhile. It's about a child psychologist who's been having issues and having nightmares, and he goes back home. And when he goes back home, he meets up with some friends, and just while at a friend's house, he leaves the dinner table to go to the bathroom, and he sees his friend's daughter in her room, and she's watching a show. And it's the same show that had aired when they were kids 30 years earlier. And it was this weird show with little puppets, and they're very creepy looking. And he goes back, he's like, "Do you remember Candle Cove?" He's like, "Oh," they're like, "Oh yeah, it was that creepy show that aired when we were kids." And when it aired, I think it only aired for like 2 months or something, 5 children got murdered. And then as soon as this TV show stopped, all the murders stopped. And now once this guy comes back, this show comes back, and then strange things start happening with the kids, and they're trying to figure it out. It is super creepy, super atmospheric. I love the whole vibe of this show. It was really cool. So if you've got just like a day to carve out to binge it, if you can find it, I'm not sure where you'd even find it. I have it on DVD. But if you can find it and have just a day to binge, these 6 episodes or half a day, totally worthwhile. Or if you just want to watch it over the course of a few days. Yeah, that one is totally worthwhile. And the last one on the list, number 15, is a movie from 2018 called You Might Be the Killer. So this is kind of a horror comedy movie. It is about a camp counselor who wakes up with no memory, and everyone around him is dead. So he calls his friend who works at a video store and is like a horror movie buff, and she's asking him to explain what all has been going on, and what he remembers, if he can piece anything together. And then she's like, "Well, you might be the killer." So it's kind of like a comedy, mystery, horror movie all kind of wrapped into one, but it's a really fun one and definitely worth checking out. So there you have it. Those are my 15 horror movies to watch during this spooky season. So hopefully you'll check some of them out, all of them, one of them, or none. It's up to you. It's your life. Do whatever you want. But I just wanted to give you a few different options for movies to watch, not just the same old ones that they show year after year. And yeah, so hopefully you'll check some of these out. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. If you do, let me know. If you don't, let me know. And if there's any other movies that you enjoy, please let me know. Maybe there's tons of stuff that I haven't seen, so I'd like to hear your feedback and see what movies you got for me. So until next time, it's been fun, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.